put a DJ stand. Just concentrate what he's doing.
Right, I'll not be
Doctor,
showing
go
the
ahead.
extent now. I'll just be showing cannulation of the orifices and the cystoscopy in the scenario that you'd be doing it in the scenario of gynecological surgery. I'm sure many of you already do your own cystoscopies, so it might not be very novel for you, but there are a few points of technique which will be important to note. So first, the size of your scope. We use a, if you can do you have a surface view of the scope? Okay, we're using our endo camera here. We have a 30-degree 4mm cystoscope, and the sheath is 20 French, and 17 to 20 is a good size for an adult cystoscopy. Okay, so
You don't need to dilate urethra.
for a 17 to 20 French, you do not need to dilate unless there's a stenosis, and for that you have your Heger dilators handy. So the scope should walk into the urethra. If it doesn't, you can dilate it to about 7 French or to 7 or 8 Heger, and that will allow your scope to pass.
Okay.
Right? So, just place the scope at the orifice. You've done this, I'm sure. Often you don't get a very good visualization of the urethra until you're inside, but while you're in, this is the bladder neck. So if there's any abnormality of the bladder neck, you can detect that. That's just something to note on your way inside. Right? And I'll just empty the bladder. Kidney tray, please. Before I start. Okay, now it's important to remember that this is a 30-degree cystoscope, and you can direct your vision by tilting it in various directions. Right?
Is it under sedation
So we've just
or
entered the
under-
bladder.
Can I
Dr.
ask-
Is it, can you know the anesthesia? Means is it without anesthesia? Local?
This lady is under general anesthesia because she's due for a nephrectomy after this, but it can be done under local anesthesia too with a cooperative patient.
Okay.
Right? So we look inside.
And what is the distension system that you are using? How much pressure?
Again, it's just a bottle of saline that's hanging at about 60 centimeters. That's not particularly important. What you should be aware of is how much you're distending the bladder. There's some visual clues inside. Once the bladder is over distended, which we might see a bit later, you can see the underlying muscle fiber stretched out. And you can just put your hand, if you can see my hand, you can just palpate suprapubically and just make sure the bladder is not over distended. So we go inside, we see this lady has some follicular cystitis, which is probably secondary to her stone disease. Bilkul. Right? There's also some superficial trigonitis, which is common and non-specific. Right? Now, what's of interest is the ureteric orifices. So, starting from the bladder, the trigone is a triangular area which is bounded by the ureteric orifices on the upper ends and the trigone down here, and the bladder neck here. So this is the trigone. Right? Both the orifices are well seen. One little hint is that when you want to look laterally, instead of tilting the whole scope, you can just rotate it by 30 degrees in one direction, and that will help you look on the other side. If you can see in the picture, the light cord should point in the opposite direction of where you want to look. Right? So, if I want to look now at the right ureteric orifice, I can tilt the light cord to the left side, and I'm looking straight away at the right orifice.
Great.
Similarly, if you want to look at the left orifice, you have to move the scope a bit, but similarly you can tilt it to the other side, and you're straight away looking at the left orifice. Now, when you're doing a cystoscopy in a patient who's undergone gynecological surgery, possibly you're working in a scenario where you either have suspected or confirmed ureteric injury. Right? So, of course, one thing is to look at the orifices. You may find an efflux of blood from there. Now, this patient has a non-functioning right kidney, so I'll show you the difference on the inspection both sides. This is a normal left kidney. If you just now the water, I've shut the water inlet. There's no water coming to the bladder, and I'm for a few seconds inspecting this orifice, and you can see an efflux of urine coming out of it. Can you appreciate that?
Not much.
Right, okay, we'll be patient, we'll wait for a minute. There's a gentle peristalsis. Possibly the picture transmission is not good enough. But there are boluses of clear urine coming out of this orifice.
Right.
And that tells us that this ureter is intact and transmitting urine from the kidney to the bladder. Now on the other hand, suppose hypothetically we had an injury to the right ureter. We'd see this picture. Okay, can you see the difference? The orifice, if you compare the two, this orifice is distended by boluses of urine that are coming out.
Right.
Whereas this orifice, in this case, it's because this kidney is not functioning. But you can see the difference in the orifices. It's just not open, it's lying shut completely. right? So if you're suspecting ureteric injury, make sure there are other reasons for the orifice not opening, which could be dehydration. So make sure the patient's well hydrated. You can give a small dose of Lasix, and then efflux of clear urine will confirm that all is well with that ureter. Okay, so, and we'll come back to these ureters and cannulate them in a bit. While you're inside, it's worthwhile just looking all around the bladder, so you can just use the tilt of the 30-degree tilt as I've described and inspect all the walls. This is looking at the posterior wall towards the fundus. You can look at both the lateral walls, and again use the 30-degree tilt. If you want to look at the right lateral wall, I'll tilt the light cord to the left side and systematically inspect the whole bladder. Similarly, the left lateral wall. And it's worth looking at the fundus, although that's not usually injured in gynecological surgery. I'm tilting the light cord downwards and looking vertically upwards. This is the fundus, and I'm just giving a bit of suprapubic pressure, and you can see the indentation there. So you can look at all the walls of the bladder and just confirm that everything is intact. And now we'll come to ureteric cannulation. Ureteric catheter, please. Now what you need for this is a ureteric catheter, a 5 French ureteric catheter with an open end. I don't know how well you can see it. Are you able to appreciate it?
What you are trying to show, it's a
5 French ureteric catheter.
5 French ureteric catheter, okay.
Right, and inside that is a Terumo wire. This is a hydrophilic guide wire.
Right.
Right, and ideally you should not cannulate the ureteric orifice without a hydrophilic guide wire. There's a risk of injury. Okay. And you can make a hole. Now the intramural portion of the ureter is oblique, and it's possible if you just head in with an ordinary wire to perforate the posterior wall, making subsequent attempts at cannulation impossible. So the ureteric catheter goes in. We advance the wire until its tip is seen. Right? We bring it up to the orifice. Now one useful maneuver here, as I said, it's a oblique, the intramural part of the ureter is oblique. So one trick to straighten it out a bit is to engage the lateral lip of it and pull it sideways. Do you see that? And this helps to straighten the intramural portion a little bit. Once that's been done, the wire can be advanced inside, and once you're sure that the wire has traversed it, after that the catheter is passed over it. It's a good idea not to pass the catheter directly because it will often go, but it's a potentially traumatic device and it can cause perforation of the ureter.
So, but how to know that it is guide wire or something has reached to renal pelvis?
Right, now ideally for this you need a C-arm.
Okay.
Right, and I understand that in every situation it will not be available.
Yeah, so we don't have C-arm then?
Then one thing is that you look at the length of the ureteric catheter that's gone inside. Now I'll start from here. The ureteric catheter is marked off in 1 centimeter markings. Okay. Right, and the length of the ureter is on average about 25 centimeters. It may be 20 centimeters in a shorter lady. 20 centimeters. So you can
1, 2, 3. You have to go on counting.
Yeah. So just a minute. The first thing is that the wire should go up freely. A good length of wire should go up, and once often you can get a feeling that it's coiling in the pelvis, although that's subjective. Secondly, once the wire is up and it goes up without resistance, you can start advancing the catheter along it, and if the wire is safe in the ureter, the catheter will pass smoothly. Right? So you count the markings. Every 5 centimeters there's a double mark, which starts at 10 centimeters. So this double mark tells us that it's at 10 centimeters.
So then you introduce more guide wire and then only
the guide wire should be introduced as until you think it's in the pelvis. So a big distance of wire. As long as the wire goes smoothly, you can just push it in until it bounces back. Or you feel it bouncing. You'll not see it, but you get a feeling of that. And once you feel your wires inside, if you're doing this without a CM, if you have CM guidance, that's the best thing. Then you advance the wire, the catheter over it. And once you've gone to about between 20 and 25 centimeters, you know you're probably in the upper ureter in the pelvis.
So it's
At least
15 centimeter.
So now it's 15.
Okay.
And I'll just advance this as much as it goes. Now it's gone to 20
20 and 25.
and 25.
Wow.
So we know that this is gone up smoothly. There's been no bleeding. And one more thing one can do is, once you think you're in the pelvis, you can remove the wire. Wire nikal dijiye. And look for an efflux of clear urine from the tip of the ureteric catheter. Right? And if you don't see it, it doesn't mean you're not inside. But if you do see an efflux of clear urine, then you're sure you're in the pelvis. Right? And subsequently, if required, a stenting can be done.
I have a quick question I wanted to ask.
Yes.
If there is a ureteral orifice spasm, do you have any tip for that?
A ureteric orifice spasm, by and large, doesn't exist. At least as far as I know.
Okay.
There's, it's not like a blood vessel that goes into spasm and then relaxes later. So I'm going to remove this now. And again, you can see that there's no bleeding, so we know that it's gone into the, it's not traversed the ureter and exited at any point.
Can I ask what's the maximum amount of fluid which you should be using while inflating the bladder?
Yeah, again, everyone's bladders are of different size, but between 200 and 300 ml is a good average.
Not more than that.
Quantity. So basically, you want the bladder to be distended so that all the folds have disappeared of an undistended bladder. At the same time, you don't want it over distended. And as I said, about 300 ml is a good quantity. You can also, palpate, if the patient's not too obese, you can palpate the bladder with a hand on the suprapubic region and confirm that it's not over distended. हाँ sure. DJ stenting दिखाऊं उसके बाद इसमें? I can do that. Right. Because my case is over except for the DJ stenting.
Just आप बोल दो कि showing DJ setting आपका ऑडियो वहाँ पे वीडियो दिख रहा है ऑडियो will be off for few minutes.
All right. So the audio is going away from here, but I think you'll be able to see the image. So I'll just put a DJ stent up in here to demonstrate. All right. And then we'll shift her out. DJ stent.
So which kind of DJ stand you select and how you select?